Hello students, Miss Lockhart here. We're going to make this really cool abstract collage and we're going to practice cutting out shapes. It's going to be great. You're going to need scissors, a pencil, different colored paper for our shapes. Now if you don't have construction paper, you might try a brown paper bag or maybe some old wrapping paper or magazines, anything that might be a different color from the white background paper you choose. You may also choose a black background paper if you do have construction paper. Now I'll be using oil pastels, a glue stick, a pencil, and some scissors, as will you today. Okay, so if you need to take a minute to gather some colorful paper, you may do so. You can choose either a white or black background, like I mentioned before. And then here is some colorful paper. Now, we're going to practice all kinds of cool stuff today, and don't worry if your shapes look exactly like my shapes. We're just going to have fun. The first step is to fold a piece of colorful paper in half so that you have a fold crease like that. See here? Great. Now I'm going to go ahead and fold my second colorful piece of paper. You may do the same if you have a second colorful piece of paper nearby. And make sure you know where the folds are. So when you fold a piece of paper, you meet the corners just like that, where the corners line up, and then you press down that curve to create a crease, just like that. Okay, so I have 3 colorful pieces of paper that have been folded in half, which is the first step. So if you need to pause the video, go ahead and continue to fold until you have 3 folded pieces of paper. Then you can grab a pencil. I'm going to use a black marker so it's really easy for you to see, but you'll use a pencil. The black marker is just easier for you to see from the video. Now grab your pencil and let's make a shape. Now we're just going to draw half of a shape on the crease. So it's going to come from the crease. And you're going to just draw a straight line coming out of the crease like that. And then bring down a straight line and bring it over again. So it looks like a rectangle. Now remember, if your shapes don't look just like mine, that is fine. Do your best. So you can see here, I have drawn a rectangle on my piece of paper, and watch what's next. I'm going to cut it out. Now, I hope you watched that cutting video included in your slide presentation. Go ahead and make sure you're comfortable holding your scissors and chomp a few times, and then when you're ready, you can chomp or cut your paper. Now look here, we have straight lines, so that's nice. You can just cut into those 2 straight lines, and then turn your paper so that you can reach this next line you drew and cut that out with one good chomp or cut. I like to say chomp. Now when you open up your piece of paper, you're going to see how cool this is. Now you have a larger rectangle because your paper was folded so that when you unfold it, it becomes a larger shape. Now what we just did with this rectangle is going to be repeated on the other 2 pieces of paper. But first, let's glue it down. Now use washable school glue. It can be a glue stick or it can be the liquid glue. If you're using liquid glue, make sure you don't use too much, just dot, dot, not a lot. For the glue stick, you can just press it down onto your shape. You can use the back of the paper if you don't want to get glue spots on the front of your paper. When the back is covered with glue, turn it back upside down and glue it down to your paper. You can put it anywhere you want on your paper. Okay, so I'm going to always remember to put the lid back on my glue or turn it to close it if you're using a squeeze bottle. Okay, so here we have our other folded pieces of paper. So exciting. I cannot wait to make some more fun shapes. Now remember, you need to draw your shapes on the fold, so that way you can open up the fold and have a bigger shape. Now what I'm drawing here is a curve, which is like half a circle. It's kind of hard to see because I didn't use that marker, but you can kind of see it if you look close. It's kind of like a rainbow line, which will end up making a circle when I open it up. So cut very slowly around your curve. Little cuts work great when you're cutting curved lines, just do little cuts. Okay, and then once you cut it out, here's the fun part, open it up. See what shape you got. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle. Okay, I'm gonna cut out one more shape from this blue paper on the fold. Now I'm gonna draw another curve. It's much smaller. And let's go ahead and outline it so you can see it because it's so small. Now with small shapes that are curved, you really need to turn your paper around so it's easy to cut that line. And you're gonna do small little cuts instead of big cuts. Okay, open it up and there you have another little circle or whatever shape you might have found that you created. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue these two down before I move on to my next colored paper. Flip it over and put some glue. Now the glue sticks really nice because you can just attach the paper to it. It just sticks right to the glue and cover one side. Now it's a good idea to press it down and rub it a few times. Make sure it's good and stuck to your paper. Now I'm gonna go ahead and glue the next circle. You may be using liquid squeeze bottle glue. And then if you are, make sure you do dot, dot, not a lot so you don't use too much and then it spills out on your nice paper. Okay, so on that one I did flip my paper over and I applied the glue to my big blue circle on the back of my black paper so that I wouldn't get any glue spots on the front. Now make sure you put the lid back on your glue tightly. And time for our last color. Okay, what shape do I want to make? I'm thinking a diamond or a triangle. So make sure you have your fold line facing you. Do a little dot above your fold line. Oh, my eraser keeps falling off. Do a dot above your fold line and then draw two diagonal lines. Looks like an A, doesn't it? A capital A. Okay, so you can do two diagonal lines coming from the little dot. Now since these are straight lines, it's going to be a little easier to cut than the curved lines. Make sure that your paper is tall with a fold on the left. Go ahead and put a dot right next to the fold. See where that dot is next to the fold. Now connect it to the fold with a line. Okay, now this is going to be a triangle, so we need to put a dot at the top up here to remind us where our triangle edge is going to be, where the corner is going to be. So then I just connected my two dots together and you see a triangle form. Now let's see what happens when we cut these out. It's going to be really cool. So whenever you have straight lines, you can do bigger cuts or chomps. 1, 2, and I cut that out with 2 cuts on each side. Now I'm going to open it up in just a moment. Now, since I have more straight lines, that's nice. 1 big cut on one direction and then a few little cuts the other direction. Now let's open these up and see how fun. Ooh, a diamond. And a triangle. Cool. Now your shapes could look different and that is okay, remember? It's just for practice. Oh, and look at that. If you cut that triangle in half, you get 2 triangles. I could even cut that, but I like it as a diamond. Now it's time to glue. Oops, my lid was still on. Must take the lid off first. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and cover the back of this diamond shape with glue and glue it down to your black or white background paper, depending on what color paper you have at home. Okay. Now we just need to glue the other 2 shapes. I'm gonna flip my paper so I can use the back. I don't want to get too much glue on the front, so flip it over and then you can glue a little bit easier on the back of your triangle shapes. And see how I got glue on the black paper? I'd rather have glue on that back of the paper than on the front, so that's why I flipped it over. These are so sticky they stick to my fingers, which is fine because it's washable glue. And it'll come right off when I wash my hands. Now go ahead and put the last of your shapes down on your paper. Keep your shapes spread out so that way we can draw lines around the shape you made. Now your shapes, like I mentioned before, do not have to be perfect shapes. They can be organic shapes, which means They might not have a name, like a rectangle has a name. They could be just a fun kind of blob shape, which is great too. So do the best you can and just practice cutting and gluing. Now I just showed you a little trick. If you lift up the side of the paper, if it didn't get glued, you can lift it pretty easily. And then you can add glue where it's coming up off the paper just to make sure it stays nicely and looks really good. So just practice gluing and cutting, and if you want to add a few more little shapes, you sure can. Next week, we're going to draw on our paper. And if you used black paper, you can use oil pastels, see how it'll look. If you used white paper, you can use anything you have to color with because anything will show up on your white paper. Okay, everybody, hang on to your artwork. Make sure you've glued everything down, and when you put it somewhere to dry, be sure that you don't stack anything on top of it because then you'll get artwork stuck to other things, and that's no good. So go ahead and store your art for next week, and thanks for watching and following along. You guys are awesome. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.